All right, here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Reyes Reflection Podcast. We are always free to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And also, don't forget to check out our YouTube page for clips as well. Since the inception of the show, I've had some pretty big names, some pretty famous people on, but like everything else in life, we continue to evolve, and that's what's happening with my next guest. I have with me a man whose accolades are so extensive, the entire episode would be spent with me reading them off. So I'm going to do my absolute best to read off some of them, some spark notes, as if you will. He's an Olympian, a Cape Verdean record holder, a gold medalist, Hall of Famer, coach, mentor, philanthropist, father, husband, and I know I'm definitely missing some, but that's like I said, those are some spark notes. So without further ado, please welcome Ruben Sança to the show. Thank you for coming on, my friend.
Thanks, Nate. I appreciate being on the show. And it looks like you got a lot of the facts right. So you did your research for sure.
All right. I like it. Yeah, I always do. I like to come prepared. So I see you're wearing a Cabo Verde shirt or in Cape Verde. How do you say it? Which one is it? I know people.
So in Portuguese, you say it Cabo Verde.
Okay.
But with the English, they've changed it over time. Typically, people say Cape Verde.
Yeah,
that's what most people say. So
nice. And you grew up there, right? That's where you grew up, right?
Yeah, I grew up there until I was 12 years old. Then my family and I came to the U.S.
How was life growing up in there? How's and where's that so that's is that South America? Is that correct?
No, that's it's actually so Cape Verde is part of Africa.
Oh, it is.
So it's
Okay.
10 islands off the west coast, the northern west coast of Africa.
Oh, no
And
kidding.
we were conquered by Portugal until 1975 when we got our independence. But yeah, it's we're right next to you can barely see us on the map. So we're right next to Africa.
Yes, a tiny country. What was life like over there in that tiny country?
A lot different, very small. I lived in a very, very small island. From one point to the other was 22 miles. And I come from a very small fishing town where, at the time when I was living there, everybody knew each other. We had 5 streets. We, as kids, we end up doing a lot of things kind of like independently on our own.
Yeah.
No organized sports there really at the time. Now there is, but when I was growing up, we just kind of were very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
So we would do a lot of things on our own. We would organize our own games. But yeah, it was it was a good time there. A lot of my family still lives there, and I often go back.
I was going to ask. Yeah, I was going to ask how often you visit. Yeah.
Yeah. So last time I was there was 2020. I try to go back every 2 or 3 years. So I'll probably due for a visit soon.
Yeah.
But we, as I was saying, we speak Cape Verdean Creole, which is a mix of Portuguese and West African language. There's a lot of Portuguese culture there, and that they left a lot of influence within the people, music, food, and everything else. So growing up there, I still have a lot of family there. I'm very well connected with the country.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Wow, that's really cool. And you said the 22 miles from one coast to the other. That's insane. That's really small.
Yeah, from one side of the island to the other.
Wow, wow. Is that how you started to practice your marathon career? Because that's how.
No, actually, when I was in Cape Verde, I'll say my whole story behind running, but when I was in Cape Verde, I never really played. Never really did whole lot of sports. I played soccer and I like to go fishing, but running was never on my radar. As a matter of fact, when I was little, I had asthma. I had really really bad asthma.
Oh wow.
In and out of hospital a lot of times. I would have random asthma attacks. So I was never, running was never even in my radar back then.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the reasons why actually my parents came to the U.S. was so that we could obviously get education and better life, but also get better treatment for asthma, and have a better probability of having a better life with asthma. So that was definitely one of the reasons why we came to the U.S. But running was much later when I was in school here.
Yeah, so I have in my research here that you came to the States about 20 years ago and you ran for a middle school in Boston. Is that correct?
I did, yes.
So,
Um,
so you just said it right there. It was never on your radar. It never was even a thought process to you. You wanted to come to the States so that way you can have a better understanding and containment of your asthma. But what made you want to get into running?
Actually, when I was in school, I like the fact that we had sports in middle school. So I played middle school soccer, and at the time, I knew no English before I came to the U.S. Didn't speak a word of English, and at the time, one of our teachers, came into our classroom and said, "Hey, would anyone like to do cross country?" And at the time, the Boston Athletic Association, the organization that puts on the Boston Marathon, they were doing some sort of like a clinic, and then they would bring you to a cross country race, and they do that sort of stuff to get inner city kids exposure to running at an early age. And I didn't really know what cross country meant. I thought we were traveling across the country to go running. So I put my hand up, and I did the race. It was a lot of fun, and I actually did better than I expected.
Yeah,
And I guess by the time I had been in the U.S. for a while, and my asthma was sort of calming down a little,
it subsided
so
a
that was
little.
my
Yeah.
first time ever doing a race. And then after that, we had middle school track for Boston Public Schools, and because I had done the cross country in the fall, I had some exposure to running, so I signed up. But even when I did middle school track, I was nothing special. I was always kind of like in the back of the pack, just average runner within our school.
Oh, so it wasn't like you were a standout at the time, but your soccer stamina probably helped though, because there you're constantly running up and down the field, so that probably helped some to some degree.
Not quite. I just running was at the time, even doing a lap or two, on the track was very tiring for me. I
Really?
still had asthma in me, and I just wasn't quite developed as a runner,
Yep.
and I wasn't fast at all. So
At least you're honest about it. At least you're like, yeah, I just wasn't the fastest. So, um, after middle school, did you go to high school in Boston too?
yeah, so I ended up, in Boston. There are three exam schools, and I ended up taking an exam to go to one of the schools. I got into the John D. O'Brien School of Math and Science, which luckily O'Brien just happened to have one of the best track and field programs in the city of all the Boston public schools. Nearly 20 schools for high school, and O'Brien had a history of winning the city championship. So I lucked out. I was there, and I said, well, I did it in middle school, and at the time I was playing soccer at O'Brien in the fall, and there was a runner. His name was Carl. He was on the soccer team there, and he said, "Hey, Ruben, I think you'd really enjoy doing track." So that winter, I signed up for track, and I did my first season of actually doing more running and being fully coached by a high school coach. And I slowly started to improve little by little. Every season, I would set my goals, and I'd get to them, and we trained extremely hard. So it required a tremendous amount of discipline over the time period. And I just kept going. And by the time I was a junior in high school, my high school coach said, "Hey, Ruben, I think you're getting much better. I think you may want to think about just shutting down soccer and doing cross country." So I decided to that junior year that I would do cross country. But the issue was that cross country is not really an inner city sport. So there's of all the 15 schools in Boston, we could only get five or three runners combined, 15 schools.
Oh wow.
Um,
That's it.
so it's just not a popular sport. The popular sports in the city are basketball, football.
Yep.
Um, so, to put things in perspective, the Boston Public School decided to have a citywide program where they gave us a coach, and we would go over to Franklin Park in Boston to do a couple laps and kind of just practice cross country, and we didn't have any dual meets. It was just at the end of the towards the end of the year we'd have the city championship and one meet. So I did the city championship, and I did well. I think I won that year. But then, just as we were getting ready for states, I got injured. So I got injured. I didn't really run well. And then my entire, fall, the rest of the second half of the fall, I had a pretty serious knee injury that I had to really take some time off. So that was kind of like, the first year, and then came back the second year. I had to beg the Boston Public School to just give us one more shot to just kind of have a season, because we really didn't have many interest at the time. I think maybe we'd gone down from 5 runners to 3 runners, and there was really no hope of us, kind of like having a program. But that summer, I had started, really increase my training, and I had some good advice from former coaches who had coached the Boston City schools before. Tony DeRocha is one of them, and I started really kind of. I could tell that during late in the summer that I was improving tremendously. So I went to the Boston Public School athletic director and I said, "Hey, can you guarantee me that you can at least allow us to have a season and perhaps pay for a few buses for us to go to the bigger meets so I can test myself?" So things started going. We were able to go to a few meets. We would do time trials because we didn't really have a league. And by the time I think it was maybe around November when the division state championships came, and I knew exactly who my competitions were, and I knew that I would be able to do sort of like time trials. So I knew I could run alone. I was the only runner from the entire Boston Public Schools, and there I won the Division Two state championship by over 100 meters in the snow.
Wow.
So from that time, I started getting. That was probably my biggest running accomplishment to date, and it really caught the eyes of college coaches that started recruiting me that fall.
That was going to be my next question. How did you get recruited from UMass Lowell? Because you ran in UMass Lowell. You're a Hall of Famer for UMass Lowell. How did they reach out to you and get you on their program?
Well, I mean, this brings up a good point. I think a lot of the times, even though I won the cross country championship, my track times still weren't nothing spectacular. I would qualify for states, but I didn't really do anything that really caught a lot of the Division 1 schools, mostly Division 2s and threes.
Okay.
So when I was running, I knew I had to improve. At the time, I think my mile best at the time was about 4:32, and my 1,000 meter best was about 2:43 or so. Eventually, that winter, I focused in the 1,000 meters. I got down to 2:33. I finished fourth at all states, and then I went to New England's where I finished fifth. So that started to catch a lot of people's attention. But the 1,000 meters is not a race that heavily contested. So I still needed to improve my mile time, and at the time, because the structure of our championships and our meets, I really was never really tested during the season. So a lot of the times, I would get maybe one, two, or three opportunities to run fast, and if I didn't have a good race, that was it. But during the season, Boston Public School, the competition wasn't as competitive as some of the other leagues in the state. So with that said, in order for a coach to really come and recruit me, they had to really know exactly the type of environment and atmosphere that I was competing in. I had tremendous amount of speed, so I could run 52 to 400 meters, which was considered pretty fast for a distance runner,
Yeah.
but no one really would know that because I never ran the Open 400. But the UMass Lowell coach, I think he had seen me practice and he knew where I was coming from. He knew I haven't really been exposed to a lot of the organized training, and he knew the type of training I did, which I didn't burn out or anything like that. I still had a lot of strength in my legs, and he also knew that I just simply didn't have the opportunity to race as many fast high school kids as some of the other schools in the state. So I actually reached out to a couple of Division I schools that I won't mention on the show, but they turned me down within New England. They just said I could try to walk on, but I just wasn't competitive enough for them.
Yeah.
I had a few other Division II schools come out to me, but I picked UMass Lowell because there were many different factors. They had a great engineering school, business school, which I was considering doing either business or engineering, and they had a history of being just developing runners. That they had some runners in high school that would go in as average runners, and they would come out as some of the best runners in New England. So that was very noticeable, and I knew that I had the the speed, but I needed to work more on my endurance, my stamina. I needed to have people that could actually push me in practice because I never had that.
Yeah. Who could
And
challenge you? Yeah.
yeah, to challenge me. So once I went to UMass Lowell, it was kind of like a perfect fit. I had the talent, and then now I had the resources, the coaching, the places to run, the people to push me, the competition to go to, the right gear, equipment.
Yeah.
So it was, and then once I got there, I really kind of, because my mind was still fresh in wanting to, run track. I hadn't burned out or anything from high school. I was very excited. So I just put together a couple of really good years of training, some ups and downs along the way, injuries and things like that. But then in the end, I managed to get through, and I continued focused on the goals, and eventually I was able to get to a level where then I was doing much better than what I could have ever imagined.
That's incredible. And kudos to you for recognizing that at such a young age that you wanted to be challenged and that you knew that you had some raw talent that needed to be molded a little bit. And with those coaches that could do that for you, I mean, they took the risk on you, and it looks like it paid out. So
Yeah, I mean,
that's a
I
win.
think a lot of the times, especially being from the city, coming from Dorchester, being from inner city track and field programs, a lot of the coaches that are recruiting, they don't realize or don't understand the atmosphere that we're coming into. Uh, so my coach, he knew exactly who I was. He got to know me as a person. He knew I was coming from an immigrant family, so a lot of stuff were new to me, and he just kind of knew the type of support that I needed to be able to help me grow as both a student and an athlete. And I think a lot of the times, coaches they tend to pay attention mostly to what time some kids are running, whether they're placing high, but they don't actually get to know the individuals. And I think from a perspective of finding untapped talent, I think my coach, Gary Gardner, UMass Lowell, I think he's one of the best in doing that, and he knew a lot with very little talent. It's just for me. It's just it was a perfect situation. He believed that I could run fast, and every season we would set different goals. And from the day he was recruiting me, he told me, "I know you can run this fast."
Yeah.
And pretty much all the times that I had, I didn't even have imagined, I was able to run.
Side note: what did you graduate with at UML? What degree did
As
you get?
as far as the degree,
Yes.
yeah. So I went for my undergrads in business administration with concentrations in both management and finance, and I did a minor in economics, and I stayed for another year and a half, and I got my MBA from there.
Wow. Look at you. Look at that. That is the American dream. You migrated over here. You worked hard, and look at you. And you work there now too, right?
Yes, I've been working there for just over 10 years full
Wow.
time.
Wow. So you've fully given back. and in more ways than one. So kudos to you, Hall of Famer. I want to transition into this. You ran in the 2012 Olympics in London. Talk to me a little bit about what was life like as an Olympian. I mean, what's it like being in the Olympic Games? That must be insane.
Yeah, I mean, I had been in contact with the Cape Verdean Athletics Federation. I would go often, during summer training or during the winter. I had done a couple of races there, and at the time, Cape Verde really didn't have a huge Olympic team. We had a couple of runners, a couple of other sports athletes as well, and there was an opportunity for me to be able to apply for a wild card. So each country is allowed to that if you don't actually achieve the Olympic standard, which is very very tough. Each country is allowed to bring someone as a wild card, but in order to go as a wild card, you have to show that you're the absolute, best athletes as far as any event in track and field. So I had the opportunity to go in 2012. I made it in the 5,000 meters. Before, it was a pretty challenging time because right before I got on the plane, I happened to be dealing with an injury. But while we were there, I was able to rehab and eventually get to the starting line.
Yeah, you were battling a knee injury. Is that correct?
Yes, I was battling a knee injury. So half the time that I spent there was in London, doing rehab in the morning and then running in the afternoon. I hadn't actually run in 2 weeks leading up to the Olympics. I had zero running. So as soon as once I got back from the Olympics, we were able to figure out what was wrong,
Yeah.
and then I had knee surgery the following year.
Yeah, it was a benign tumor. Is that correct?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. Wow. I mean, good thing it was benign. For the people who don't know what that means, it means it wasn't cancer, right? It wasn't cancerous.
yes. It
Yeah.
was it was not cancerous.
Yeah. So, thank your lucky stars. That's awesome. So, um, tough break though that you were running on a bum knee basically the entire time that you were there. You were one of three members too. Is that correct? Like
Yes,
it wasn't a big team whatsoever.
yeah. It was very small.
Yeah. Yeah. How was it like in the you know how they introduce you and you're kind of representing your country? How was that like? That must have been pretty cool though.
Yeah, it was very cool. I think just the entire atmosphere there, just being around some of the best athletes in the world. It
Yeah.
felt like we were on a college campus with everyone else.
With
There's
the
a
best athletes in the
cafeteria,
world.
and you see them, you kind of like starstruck for a while, and then after a couple of days, you just kind of get used to it. But yeah, it was definitely an amazing atmosphere, and you kind of get to know each person that's there. There's some sort of like story behind it,
Yeah.
although people tend to think that you get to the Olympics because you're talented, but there's just so much more behind getting there.
Yeah. Hard work. There's a lot. There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes before you finally get there, and unfortunately, in most cases, people just focus on what they see at that time, not everything behind. But like you said, I mean, even you had a whole story. You had a whole novel before you even walked in the opening ceremony. So yeah, it goes to show you. You are the founder and owner of Lowell Running. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that organization? I'm unfamiliar with it.
So Lowell Running in around 2015 and 16, I was getting a lot of this was after I had run Boston Marathon, and I had broken the Cape Verdean record in the marathon. I had finished top 25 twice in the marathon at Boston. I was getting a lot of requests from individuals nearby just asking me to coach them. So I started coaching a couple of teammates, and eventually I said, hey, if I'm going to coach, I want to make sure I have a good platform where I can help runners of all ages and abilities, whether someone starting to just picking up running for the first time, or someone trying to finish a marathon or trying to qualify for Boston. So I started doing that right around 2015 and 16. And it just kind of evolved over time, where I was able to hire other coaches who had similar things in mind, and I was able to kind of use my own professional background in turning it into a business. So it's been great. We've been able to help a lot of runners from all over the world. Pretty much um, a lot of different countries. Almost every state we've had someone sign up for coaching, and we help them out in either whether it's through a monthly subscription plan, which they can sign up, or whether it's through like a 4 month plan that they just kind of pay ahead and go with the coaching. But the coaching is very interactive. Where whether you are here in the U.S. or in some other country, as soon as you finish your run, we know exactly every step of your run, what you're doing. Kind of analyze your training and on a week to week basis, give you specific workouts to help you get better.
Is it so it's an app? It's like an app or like some sort of portal that you can go
Yeah,
ahead.
so
Okay.
it's I outsource a company to provide me with the app, so you can download an app called Final Surge, or you can also go on our website and log in, and you can see your entire training. But you can also the cool thing about it is that you can also put in the training through your whether it's iPhone or Android calendar, so it stays in your
Oh.
calendar, or you on a daily basis when you wake up you get a text message, an automated text message from me, from your coach, that tells you, hey, here's Nathan, here's what you got to do for today. So
Wow. Okay. So how many people do you have working like coaching and helping other people out? Because if
at
you're saying
the,
you're reaching other countries too, right?
I think at the most I had about 8 coaches, but since then we've kind of like a lot of the coaches that actually were working for me. They did so well that they ended up starting their own business.
Yeah.
But right now we're 2 coaches. We're 2 coaches. We probably coach anywhere between 40 to 50 athletes, depending. Some of them come and go depending on the
Yep.
season. But I would say overall, we've coached hundreds of athletes that have gone to do anything from track to 5Ks, half marathons, marathons, ultras, anything in between.
And you said that they track it. Is there some sort of way that you can kind of see the route that they take? Because I've seen some online where they like do like a smiley face, or they purposely like do something
Yeah.
silly to show it.
So everything is through the app is very compatible with many different watches, whether it's a Garmin, a Polar. And as soon as you finish your run, like you could be in Australia right now, and as soon as you finish your run, you click save. I get a notification on my cell phone saying, "Hey, Nathan has finished his run," and then I can actually click and see exactly where you ran, how the weather was, what elevation, what were your pace, what was your cadence. So then I'm able to kind of, for me, because I've been running for so long, I'm able to tell exactly, what condition you're in, because I've also interacted with so many different athletes. I can recommend whatever the workouts that I think you need in order for you to hit your goals based on the background of you as a runner.
Wow. So it sounds very intuitive because it sounds like it's like you said, compatible with phones and your watch. So it seems very intuitive. Wow. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. The last thing I want to ask you is you started the Sanka Foundation, which integrates sports, academics, and life skills to children back in your home country. How important is it for you to give back to your community, to where you grew up, and to remember your roots?
For me, it was kind of natural. It's something that just grew organically. When I was here, I realized that a lot of there are a lot of things here that sometimes we take for granted. Even having school supplies that you can buy at at very minimum cost, or shoes that you can buy a pair of shoes for very little, or someone can give you a pair of shoes. And thinking back in my hometown, there are so many kids there that the standard of living is a lot different than in the U.S.
Yep.
So one of the things that I decided to do is that it was just to help out, do the very minimum. So a lot of my friends that have shoes here or have kids with shoes, I asked them if they could, maybe give me their old, used shoes, a pair of sneakers or whatever, and to just send back home. And then my parents, they kind of help out with getting some school supplies, and my brothers, they all help out as well. Eventually, I think, with the foundation, it's still a kind of like a very uh, basic level. I'm not doing anything too fancy with the academic programs yet. Eventually, I think that's the route that I would like to take. But for now, one of the things that I really found that was important when I was growing up was to make the connection between sports slash athletics and academics. I think when you're able to kind of put the two together, and you learn the hard work discipline from one, and then you can kind of think about the same this think about the other side, in academics, how hard work discipline and all that translates into success. You find that there's a formula that you can use for both. So I wanted to give back by providing shoes, sneakers, where kids who didn't have access or opportunity to train would be able to have a pair of shoes to train, because oftentimes when there is money to buy a pair of shoes, they're probably going to buy, shoes to go to school, not shoes to go running. And
Yeah.
there are a lot of kids there in Cape Verde that they run barefoot because they just don't have shoes, or even adults too that don't have shoes, so they won't do any running at all. So I wanted to kind of give back, and we were able to find a way in which we basically, we do it very old school. We stash a lot of shoes into market basket bags, and we clean them up. We put them in barrels. We send them back home. It costs us, just to send a barrel back home costs us about $135 or so. But we can send about 55 pair of shoes each time.
Wow.
And then back home in Cape Verde, I have other members of the organization, the foundation. And because I am a foundation in Cape Verde, it's easier once the shoes get there for them to get them from the ships, and they don't have to pay extra, taxes and things like that. And the individuals that I have there, they are teachers. They're actually phys ed teachers at the high school level, so they know all the kids. They know who's in need of what, or whether school materials or running shoes.
You're totally right in the aspects of how important it is that sports and academics can tie in with one another, and how they can integrate and help each other out, and how important it is cognitively to be in academics, and how sports can help tie that in. And I love that, because I always love the saying, you're a student athlete, you're a student first, athlete second. But I still love how they go hand in hand with one another. And in terms of your shoes and the school supplies, you make a very great point. I agree with you on how the fact that those resources are uh, more accessible here in the United States, and as you said, they're uh, they're cheaper in other aspects, and they're not as difficult to get. I can go to Walmart, I can get some school supplies, I can get a cheap pair of shoes, whereas in other countries, so there's a lot that's not as common. So what I'm trying to say is you that that's a good job, and I support it 100%, because a lot of the times these kids
Thank
do
you.
not have that. So kudos to you. We need more people like you, my friend.
Thanks.
How can people get in touch with you to help you out as you're doing this? So if people wanted to get in contact with you, how could they do so?
Yeah, so the way that we do it, I have a few individuals that have been helping me out. Some of the runners that I coach themselves, what they do is they collect shoes on their own, whether it's maybe a couple of 5 or 10 pair of shoes, and then they either bring them to my house, or they let me know when I can go to get them from their house. So if anyone is interested, they can reach out to me, whether it's via social media. My name on social media is at Ruben P Sanca, my last name. So they can just reach out to me, and the easiest way to where you can have actually the most impact is by almost being like a community leader. So you can collect shoes on your own, and then I go to your house and I just pick them up, or you come and drop them off. That way, through more people being involved in doing that initial like ask for their friends. I think we all have friends that have at least a pair of shoes in their house that they're not using,
Yeah.
and it's become it's become very easy for us to be able to get shoes. I think last year alone we sent over 200 pair of shoes, and we just sent this well, last month in May we sent another 200 pair of shoes. So we're trying to send as many shoes as we can. But if we have community leaders who can reach out to people, whether it's from church or from school or people on your street or your track team, just gather maybe at least 10 pair of shoes, and eventually we'll find a way to pick up those shoes from you.
And all sizes, all types of shoes. You just
All sizes, especially kids shoes.
Yep. Okay. All right. That's good to know. So, I mean, kudos to you, my friend. Like I said, keep up the good work, and I'll try my best to help out too. I mean, I as you said it, I'm in my head, and I go, I've got a couple pairs of shoes that I don't wear anymore. So you're totally right, and they're not in bad condition. So, but you said you clean it up too, and all that stuff. So
We do. We clean them up. We have a process, and it's very efficient in the way that we send them back to Cape Verde.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on, chopping it up with me, taking some time out of your busy day. I know you said that off camera, you said that you were just finishing up a run beforehand. You run like what, like 15 miles a day? Is that true?
Yep, about so. So I actually I got in 20 miles today,
20.
but
Yeah.
I'm just getting ready for eventually building up to a marathon. So I'm kind of in that stage of just accumulating mileage for now.
All right. Well, my friend, we'll try to catch you on. So, like I said, thank you so much for coming on, being a guest on the Reyes Reflection podcast. It means a lot to me.
Thank you, Nathanael. I really appreciate it, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. And as always on the show, may you live, may you love, and may you thrive. Take care, everyone.